If you love someone who needs a lot of reassurance, clarity, or emotional check ins, this episode is for you. Today, you'll learn what anxious attachment is actually responding to, why reassurance doesn't work long term, and how to love an anxious partner in a way that creates real safety without losing yourself in the process. So stay tuned. Welcome back to the podcast. And this is a 3-part arc. All of these episodes stand on their own. So if you're watching this for the first time, you just happen to search this, that's great. You're going to be able to listen today with no problem. However, if you look at the episode I did, which of course we'll link to, right before this, I sort of gave a broad overview on these different attachment styles and how to love each other and all that. And then this one and the next one, I'm just getting deeper into the styles and really the tips. But I would recommend going back and listening after, or stopping now and going back and listening and then doing this one, however you want to do that. So here we go. So loving an anxiously attached partner can really feel confusing. You might care deeply about this person and you still feel like you're constantly managing the emotional temperature of the relationship. So, you watch your tone, you think about timing, you replay conversations in your head, wondering if something small landed in the wrong way. You might reassure, explain, and adjust, but only to find yourself doing it again a few days or a few hours later sometimes. So, and over time, of course, that can turn into exhaustion, pressure, quiet resentment, even when there's a lot of love, because it really turns into compassion fatigue. That is a real thing. And I did an episode on compassion fatigue separately, which I'll link to. And for any of my new listeners, whenever I say I will link to that, where you can find that is if you're watching me on YouTube, below the video, you'll find all the links, all the things. And if not, if you're listening somewhere else, you can go to my website, abbymedcalf.com, go to this episode. Everything is there, including I have an amazing free download today to go with this episode, which I'll talk about later. I always have a therapy to go bundle if this is a big issue for you and you want to go even deeper. I will say all that at the end. So hang on. But all that and all the research I talk about, all of it you can find. All right. So I want to be really clear before we get actually much further here, that this episode isn't about shaming anyone with anxious attachment or telling them they're too much. It's about understanding what someone with an anxious attachment style is navigating internally when they're in a romantic relationship, and why relationships start to strain when reassurance becomes the main strategy for staying connected. That's really where the problems start. That's what I notice. I did an entire episode on, when they constantly need reassurance and validation, but this is going deeper into the why of it and how to understand the person. So, because this is not about fixing your partner. This is not about that they're wrong and you're right. So if that's what you think, you need to back up. This is about finding compassion, finding understanding. I hope you're listening to learn something, not prove something, and to find some ways, I'm going to give it, me, I'm going to give you all the tips. So, on how to do this. So that's all coming. I just want to make sure you're in the right mindset. And again, in the last episode, we talked about the anxious avoidant dynamic and why it's so common and why it's so painful. So again, today we're sort of slowing things down and focusing on kind of one side of that dance, right? We're talking about how to love an anxiously attached partner in a way that builds real long-term safety, not just the momentary relief, and how to do that without abandoning yourself along the way, because those are the things I see in my practice all the time. Okay, so what anxious attachment actually is and what it isn't is what we're going to do first, because we need to do that. So anxious attachment develops when early experiences of closeness were inconsistent or unpredictable, emotionally unreliable, when all those things are there. And their nervous system learns that connection matters deeply, but it's not guaranteed. So as an adult, this it doesn't usually show up as low self-esteem or drama. It shows up more as sort of a hyper attunement. I mean, it can show up as those things, but it usually shows up as like a hyper attunement. These people notice shifts in tone, like they're, in such a small, minuscule way. Sometimes they notice shifts in timing and energy, responsiveness. All that really is hardwired to protect connection. That their body is wired to protect connection. That's what I want to say. That's what happens. So anxious attachment isn't about, at its core, it really isn't about wanting constant attention or being manipulative. It's about a nervous system that learned to stay alert so love wouldn't disappear, so safety wouldn't disappear. That's what it's about. And again, I'm telling you this so that you can have some compassion, some thoughtfulness about the whole situation, because I know it can be exhausting to be with someone who has this style. Now, the research shows that adults with anxious attachment demonstrate sort of a heightened emotional reactivity and increased threat sensitivity when they're in close relationships. So obviously a romantic one will bring this up. Particularly, it happens especially during moments of what they perceive as some sort of uncertainty in the relationship, right? Again, this is physiology, not personality. I want to be really clear. So, because these things can be changed with self-awareness, with work, with all that, right? So it's not I know it seems like it becomes their personality, but it's really their physiology reacting. Because anxious attachment isn't one thing. I want to say that too. It's not. So, okay. So let's talk about some common anxiety strategies in love. Okay. Let's talk about some of the common anxiety strategies I've seen in my practice when we're talking about love relationships. Anxious attachment, first of all, it doesn't show up obviously the same way for everyone. Under stress, people use, different strategies to try to feel safe. So these aren't, fixed subtypes or labels. They're learned responses. Okay. And again, these are just what I see the most commonly in my 40 years doing this. Okay. So one common strategy, which we talked about briefly, is reassurance seeking. I think that's the thing I see the most commonly. When connection feels uncertain, reassurance feels urgent. And even after you give that reassurance, the calm doesn't last long because the underlying fear hasn't been addressed. Okay, that's why that happens. All right. So that's number one all the time. Another common strategy is hypervigilance. So an anxiously attached person is constantly scanning for emotional shifts. That's all they're doing. So, a delayed text, a distracted tone, become these meaningful interactions because their nervous system fills in the worst case scenario, right? So if you don't return the text in whatever period of time is usual, then suddenly you hate me, we're getting divorced, we're breaking up, you've learned something, whatever. That's what comes up. Okay. A third strategy I see a lot is that when fear kind of peaks, anxiety will turn into emotional intensity. So arguments escalate. Old issues resurface. Sometimes distance is threatened. I'm going to leave, or I'm going to break up with you, or divorce, whatever. And again, not because someone wants conflict, but because emotional activation feels better than emotional absence. I'm going to say that again. So again, it's not because they're looking for the conflict, or this is just a conflict kind of person. It's because that distance is so untenable, so unmanageable, that they would rather be engaged with you, even if it's a negative, quote unquote, engagement, than having you emotionally absent. I know. Sit with that for a second, especially if you're listening to this and you're more of an avoidant and they're the anxious and your partner's the anxious. And of course that creates where you get even more avoidant, but I'll get to that. Anyway, so let me talk about the research a little. The research shows that all those strategies are attempts to regulate distress and reestablish proximity, for lack of a better term, reestablish some closeness. Again, not conscious efforts to control a partner. It's not. I know it seems that way, but they are. So I want to say that too. I know it seems like their personality is controlling, right? That's how it's going to come across. Like, God, they always have to know where I am, or I always have to have a text right away, or I always have to. And I'm not saying it doesn't feel controlling. I'm not dismissing your feelings around this and your experience around this. What I'm saying is, if you can see this in a different light, if you can have this reframe, it's going to help you have more compassion as you address it. Of course, you should address it. But so again, the research shows that all the things I just mentioned, the hypervigilance, the constant need for reassurance, right? All those things are attempts to regulate, they're unconscious attempts to regulate distress and establish a closeness to you again. They're not conscious efforts to control you, even though that's how it seems and feels. Okay. And that, and this seems like a good place to get into what loving an anxiously attached partner often feels like. Because if you love someone with anxious attachment, the relationship can feel, deeply connected and deeply draining at the same time. So, you might feel appreciated and needed, but also scrutinized. You may feel close 1 minute and under a microscope the next minute. Neutral moments often require explanation. You might find that, right? Just like a kind of neutral moment, like suddenly you have to talk about it. And really what I hear the most is that emotional reassurance feels endless. It's constant, just needing to reassure. And over time, you might start preemptively managing their emotions. You may explain yourself before you're even asked because you don't want to get into it. You might avoid space, avoid silence, or avoid honesty because you don't want to trigger their anxiety. I hear that a lot. Well, I didn't want to tell them where I really was because I knew they would just get upset and I wasn't doing anything bad, right? And that creates horrible, horrible things. I think I get this the most when people are with an anxiously attached partner. This is the strategy I see a lot, not being on. And trust me, the person picks up on it. Your partner picks up. They just don't. And then it makes them more anxious because they know something's off. They feel what I call the wobble, right? They feel the wobble no matter how good you think you are at lying. And even if they don't catch it the first time, they're going to catch it as they go. Remember, what is the piece of research I quote the most from Timothy Wilson's research, which is that your conscious brain processes information at a rate of 40 bits per second, while your subconscious brain processes information at a rate of 11 million bits per second. So they don't hear what you say, they hear what you mean. They hear what's underneath, the fact that you're being honest, but not transparent. You're honest. You weren't cheating with your ex-girlfriend or whatever, right? You weren't you're doing anything to harm them when you were whatever you were doing. But they pick up on, so you're honest, but you're not transparent. So they pick up on that, what I call the wobble, like that difference between the two, because those 11 million bits are always working. So you can't keep doing this. You can't keep avoiding, that's what we're going to fix today. Okay, you got to start being more transparent and honest and not be afraid of their reaction. Okay, that this is on you. So what this means is that the relationship has slowly recruited you into the role of nervous system stabilizer. That's what's right. Think about it. That's where I know that should be a bumper sticker. That's what's happening. You have been kind of recruited is a good word here. You have been brainwashed into, or whatever the words are. You've been allowing yourself, you have full responsibility for this, but that has been your role, is to stabilize your partner's nervous system all the time and to think ahead about it or in the moment about it or to avoid it or whatever the things are. And that role creates burnout, creates resentment if it becomes permanent. And my guess is that you're listening right now because you're feeling some resentment, you're feeling exhausted, you're feeling drained, you're feeling enervated, right? That's what happens. So how do you love an anxiously attached partner without making things worse, right? How do you get here? And this is the question I get asked a lot. And I just need to say, first and foremost, the answer is not more reassurance. It's structural safety. Okay. And I'll explain, you know me, I'm going to give you all the goods today. It's structural safety. In a romantic relationship, structural safety refers to a stable, reliable framework, and it's built on mutual trust. It's built on respect and consistent commitment that allows really both of you to be your authentic selves without fear of judgment, without fear of harm or abandonment, right? With none of that. And we're going to get there. It's the underlying container that allows a relationship to be resilient and thrive. That's what it is. Again, reassurance works in the moment because it calms the nervous system temporarily, right? You've known this. There's research on this. It shows that research shows anxious attachment is associated, I want to say this, with increased amygdala activation during any kind of perceived relational threat. So in other words, people with anxious attachment, their amygdala, the fear part of their brain, has an increased activation during anything they perceive as a threat, okay? So fear responses fire quickly. They fire powerfully with these people. But reassurance doesn't retrain their nervous system. That's the problem. In fact, and again, I'm going to link to all this research. The research consistently shows that excessive reassurance can increase dependency and anxiety over time. I'm going to say that again. All that reassurance you're giving increases their anxiety, increases their dependency over time, because calm only comes from the outside, right? That's all they're learning. So that they're not learning how to shift this. The anxiously attached person needs to learn how to calm from the inside, right? They need to learn that skill. And when you're handing it to them all the time, just like anything in life, right? When you are handing someone, if you have anybody, if you have somebody at work and you always do their work for them, they're never going to learn how to do the work. And then you sit and complain and bitch about it like, oh, they've never learned how to use Excel. Well, because every time they get stuck, you run over and help them because you're thinking, oh, I can't get my work done if they can't figure out this thing. So let me just do it really quick and then I can get to my stuff so they can finish what they're doing. It's the same thing. You're rushing over to your partner. You're making them feel better for your own benefit, you think, but it's a short-term benefit. Just like at work, that's a short-term benefit. Yeah, I can get to my work now, but I'm actually losing so much time because overall, and efficiency, because overall I have to keep doing this thing. That's taking away my time at work, right? I have to keep helping this person learn how to use Excel. As opposed to they need to learn it, they need to figure this out and bite the bullet. It's going to take a little longer the first time or the first few times, but ultimately we'll be more efficient overall. I won't be so resentful of my work partner, whatever, right? It's the same thing. Come on, people. It's the same thing. Lasting safety in any relationship, but we're talking about this one, is built through patterns, not promises. Okay? Lasting safety is built through patterns, consistency, behavior, not promises. So there you go. All right. So let's get to the good stuff. These are my 5 research-backed ways to love an anxiously attached partner. Okay. That's what I'm labeling that one. My 5 research-backed ways to love an anxiously attached partner. If you strip anxious attachment really down to its core, again, it's driven by fear of sudden emotional loss, right? That's what's, again, I've done all these episodes, and I'll link to all the other episodes I've done on attachment styles and identifying them and all that, right? But that's what really any of the insecure attachment styles, whether it's avoidant or anxious or disorganized, they're driven by fear, okay? And fear of, again, some sort of fear of closeness on some level, fear of losing closeness or being too close, right? It's one of those. So these 5 principles I'm about to say to you, don't try to eliminate anxiety. What I'm trying to do is create conditions where anxiety doesn't have to run the relationship, okay? That's what we're looking for. And again, as always, so each one is going to be supported by decades of attachment and relationship research. And again, you can find all that on the website or below the video. All right. And let me say this. So before I jump into all the tips, the free download for today is going to be, it's a good one. If I do say so myself, and I do, I'm calling it Loving an Anxious Partner, 10 Things to Say and Not Say When Anxiety Shows Up. So you can download that again below the video, go to the website, and it's free. You will I'm going to always be transparent. You will be put on my email list. And what is my email list? It is called Love Bites. Twice a month, you'll receive an email from me with a story or a little research tip. It's very short, something you can read in 5 minutes that's meant to energize you, to make you think differently, to help your life. I've got tens of thousands of people on this list. People love, and a huge, what we call an open rate, like the amount of people who get it want to open it and love it. That's it. I don't sell you anything. I will not obviously sell the list or share the list. It is really meant, I am trying to heal the world. And this is one of the ways I'm just trying to keep you like thinking and keeping your attention on improving your life and improving your thinking differently about your relationships and improving those. That's all I'm trying to do. It's not evil. It's not anything else. Twice a month, you'll get that. That's it. So, and if you don't like it, unsubscribe. I won't even notice, I promise. So there you go. And if you've already downloaded things from me before, people have asked this for some reason, you're not going to be put on there multiple times unless you use different emails. So just use the same email and you'll just be on the same list. Okay. So let's talk about my 5. Ready? Here we go. Number 1 is prioritize predictability over emotional intensity. And let me explain that. You're going to prioritize predictability over emotional intensity. So an anxious nervous system calms through reliability, not grand emotional moments. Okay? That's what you have to get from this. Not the big grand gestures and the big I love yous and we're good and da-da-da. That's not how you calm an anxious nervous system. It calms through predictability and reliability. Predictability shows up in small, unglamorous ways. Okay? If you say you'll call after work, calling when you said you would does more to create safety than some heartfelt explanation and flowers later about why the day got away from you. I can't tell you how important this is. Your word has to be gold, and it should be anyway. This isn't even about someone else. This is about you. Don't say stuff because you feel like crap. When you're always quote unquote late or never on time or whatever, or never follow through, whatever those words are that you use, that sucks. And that should not be you because, by the way, the same thing happens to yourself. When you make a commitment to yourself that you're going to lose weight or wake up early on Monday or start meditating or whatever, and you just blow it off because you blow off everything. Your word means nothing. So it doesn't mean anything to you, doesn't mean anything to other people. And that's BS. Stop it. Just stop it. Stop saying you'll do things. Think, pause before you say yes. And I'm going to just out myself right now and tell you I'm the worst at this. I am, a lot of this relates to being optimistic or pessimistic. People who score higher on optimism scales tend to say yes way too quickly. And I'm the worst. I think I can bend the space-time continuum, I guess, or something. So I've been working on this for years. I am much better than I used to be, but it still gets away from me sometimes where I say I'm going to do, I'll be there at 5 o'clock, even though, I have clients till 5. Like, it's crazy. Try to take that break and think. The mindfulness will help you. The meditation will help. These are the things that'll help you be better at that. That's why mindfulness is everywhere. If you haven't downloaded my free mindfulness starter kit yet, I don't, again, know what you're waiting for. That thing, forget it. People love that. It's free. It's free. I'm giving it away, people. Giving it away because I love you. Love you. If you want to pay me and support me and so I can, keep doing this and make money, I love you too. And I will give you ways to do that at the end, but you do not have to. You do not have to. Okay? You can do it for free. Okay. So I want to say this. Reliability teaches the nervous system that connection doesn't disappear randomly. I want to say that again. Reliability, I hope I can say that again, teaches the nervous system that connection doesn't disappear randomly. That's what you're going for. That's the key. And And a bonus, this is part of the trust triad. So you want to be paying attention to these behaviors and patterns anyway. And I'll link to how you build trust and honesty in a relationship where I talk about the trust triad. I'm not going to go into that here, but if you want to learn all about the research on that and everything and what trust really is, go listen there. So that's your bonus from this. But this also means following through on emotional conversations, right? Saying, we'll talk about this later only works if later actually happens. You can't just kick the can down the road. When hard conversations reliably return to the table instead of disappearing, anxiety softens because the fear of being emotionally abandoned decreases. So you're going to have to get good at this. And again, I'm going to give you this in a minute. And predictability even applies to how you respond to the reassurance requests, because they're still going to make those, right? Well, do you love me? And, that kind of stuff. What do you mean? You haven't told me I'm beautiful today, whatever. You don't need to say more each time, but responding in a similar calm way helps anxiety know what to expect. I need you to hear that. Consistency here matters more than saying the perfect thing. That's what that is. Research consistently shows that predictable partner responsiveness is one of the strongest predictors of perceived security attachment. I'm going to say that again, right? I would need you to really, really get that. The research consistently shows that you being a predictable partner who responds predictably is one of the strongest predictors of perceived, meaning of what the other person will think, of perceived attachment security in adult relationships. Boom, bam, there you go. Drop the mic. That's what we know. So do that. And I'm going to give you examples of this later. So hang with me. Number 2, name emotions without rushing to fix them. I always say, see the tiger, don't fix the tiger, right? Anxious attachment doesn't calm because the logic is convincing. This isn't logical. It calms because the emotion is acknowledged. I'm going to say that again. Anxious attachment doesn't calm because the logic is convincing. You know this already. They don't calm down when you're so logical. It calms because the emotion is acknowledged. They feel seen. They feel heard. When you jump quickly into reassurance or problem solving, you, believe it or not, probably are signaling that fear is something to get rid of. So naming the emotion instead tells the nervous system it's not alone, right? That's what happens. That's what's beautiful, right? So for example, saying, I can see this brought up fear for you, or it makes sense that you'd feel uneasy here. That helps regulate their emotional arousal more effectively than explaining why everything is actually fine. We connect, what do I say all the time? We connect with feelings, not thoughts. We connect with feelings. You always do better when you identify feelings. Every time, 100% of the time. I guaranteed. How do you like that? Get all your money back for this episode. Ha ha ha. Please believe me. I don't just say, I'm saying things from the research. It's what we know consistently works. And from my 40 friggin' years of doing this, I still have a private practice. I still see people. I still do teamwork with companies. I still do the stuff. I know I'm old, right? But I love the work and I still do it. So I'm telling you, I see it all the time. Neuroscience research shows that emotionally labeling things, we call it emotional labeling, activates regions of the brain associated with regulation and reduces activity in threat-related areas of the brain, like the amygdala that I always talk about. Yes. So feeling seen physiologically lowers people's alarm. You're not endorsing the fear. That's what you think. You think, oh, I can't say it because I'm leaning into it. You're not. You're doing the opposite. You're not endorsing the fear. You're acknowledging the experience. I'm going to repeat that. You're not endorsing the fear. You're acknowledging someone's experience. Doesn't mean you agree with it. Doesn't mean you think they should feel this way. Doesn't mean anything. Okay? It doesn't mean any of it. I just want to repeat. Okay. Number 3, The third thing I'm going to say is to be clear about timing, not just intention. Ambiguity is gasoline for anxious attachment. Saying something again like, we'll talk later, or I'll get back to you, that's going to increase anxiety because there's no edge for the nervous system to hold on to. When your clarity creates containment, being really specific creates containment. So for example, saying, I can't talk tonight, but I can talk tomorrow morning right after breakfast, which is going to be about 9:00. There you go. Or what I do a lot, sometimes I don't know when something's going to end. Do you know what I mean? And so I'll say something like in my personal lives, relationships, I'll say something like, I am work at 1. I'm not sure exactly when I can call after that, but I'll text you and let you know. And then I always follow through 100% of the time. I can text you around 1 when I am with my clients, and I can let you know kind of better, like, oh, I can call between 2 and 3, or I can call, I can get more specific. It's beautiful. That's all. It allows the anxious system to stand down because uncertainty was replaced with some kind of structure. That's what you're doing. And this also applies to space. Asking for space without naming its length will feel like emotional disappearance to someone who's anxiously attached. Naming when you'll reconnect, that protects the closeness, even while you're separated. I need to take a break right now so I can collect myself. Let's reconvene in an hour. Or you know what? I'll get back in touch in an hour and I'll let you know when we can finish this conversation. Again, research shows that uncertainty around availability is one of the strongest predictors of attachment anxiety activation. How do you like that? We know it. The research shows it over and over. Any kind of uncertainty you give people, again, anxiously attached people, around your availability is one of the strongest predictors of their anxiety attachment issues being activated. Specific timing reduces their perceived threat. Again, it's perceived threat. I keep using that purposely because if I just say reduces their threat, you're going to be like, well, I'm not threatening them. I'm not, this isn't about you on this part, right? This is what they are perceiving. This is what their nervous system is taking in. And again, no matter how you explain, it's okay, blah, 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 they're not hearing that part. Just believe me and hold the structure. Number 4 is to hold calm, consistent boundaries. You probably guessed I was going to say something about boundaries here, right? Over-accommodating anxiety may feel loving, but it teaches their nervous system that fear must stay loud to be addressed. That's what you're teaching them. Remember, you co-create every relationship you're in. So you are responsible also in this for reactions because of what you're doing. You might be unintentionally signaling things that you can take responsibility for and shifting, right? I'm not saying if your partner is insecure, that's on them. Okay. If your partner is anxious, again, that's on them. However, if you love this person and you're trying to co-create something different together, then take responsibility for your side of the street. So, when you are like, ugh, I just want to get this person off my back and, so you kind of over accommodate their anxiety. I have my locations on and I check in every 5 minutes and I whatever. It teaches them that their fear, as long as they keep yelling and screaming about things, it'll get addressed. And that's the only way to do it. Boundaries aren't punishment. They're not mean. Boundaries are love. Boundaries are structure. Calm, repeated boundaries reduce anxiety more effectively than endless reassurance because they're really introducing stability. Okay, I can't say this enough. Again, this is what works. Just believe. So, for example, you might say, I really care about you, and I'm not going to keep answering the same question tonight. Or I'm happy to talk about this once, but I'm not going to revisit it over and over. You want to deliver that with warmth. You want to deliver that with eye contact, with maybe holding their hands, with consistency. Boundaries help anxiety learn that connection doesn't depend on the intensity. That's what you're showing. Okay. And again, tons of research on this. The research shows that relationships with clear, emotionally warm boundaries are highly associated with greater long-term security and less relational distress than relationships built on emotional overextension of any kind. Okay? That's what we know is true. That's why I tell you to do it this way. I wrote a whole book, Boundaries Made Easy. There's a workbook, Boundaries Made Easier. I mean, if you need to get deep on boundaries, you can buy a book. Or again, you can look on my website, you can, or on the YouTube channel. If you search those keywords, you'll find lots of information for free if you don't want to spend the money. No worries. Number 5, you need to remember that regulation must be shared, not outsourced. This is really big. You can support an anxious partner without becoming responsible for their nervous system. I feel like I keep repeating things. I'm going to keep repeating because I think it's like I really want it to sink in. You can support an anxious partner without becoming responsible for their nervous system. Okay? I really want you to feel that, not just hear that. I want you to feel that. Hopefully you feel some relief. Hopefully your shoulders are dropping and you're going, oh yeah, a little exhale. When one person becomes the primary regulator for the other person's anxiety, both people lose. The anxious partner isn't building internal capacity and the supporting partner burns out. You know, because that's probably why you're listening right now. Healthy relationships allow both people to tolerate discomfort, both people to self-soothe and return to connection without one person doing all the emotional labor. That's what we're looking for. Support looks like presence, not rescue. Stop rescuing. Difference between support and rescuing, right? And I did a whole episode on that and I'll link to that too. It looks like saying, I'm here with you, not I'll make this go away. That's the difference. That's the difference. It's empathy versus sympathy. Okay. And there's a lot of research on this. We call this as co-regulation. And it shows that long-term relational stability depends on both partners developing regulation skills, not one partner compensating for the other partner. Yeah. Loving an anxiously attached partner No, never mind. Okay. That's what I want to say about that. Okay. Sorry. You know, let me have a sip of water so I stay focused. Okay. I don't want to get down another rabbit hole. I just want to say that. All right. So let's talk about your own attachment style. Let's talk about when you're loving an anxiously attached partner, how it depends on your own attachment style. Let's go there now, because that's, I'm sure, what you're wanting next, right? So how this relationship feels and what it requires from you depends a lot on your attachment style. So the same anxious behaviors land very differently depending on the nervous system on the other side of them. Okay. So understanding this matters because a lot of people think the problem is just too much anxiety in the relationship, when in reality, it's a mismatch in how fear and closeness are handled in your relationship. So if you're more avoidant, if you lean avoidant, anxious behaviors can feel intrusive. They feel overwhelming, really hard to tolerate. Okay. So if you're more avoidant, reassurance requests probably register as pressure. Emotional check-ins can feel like demands. Your nervous system's instinct is often to pull back to regain a sense of autonomy, calm, control, that kind of thing. So the problem is that pulling back usually intensifies anxiety with their partner, even when you're not meaning to. So an example, you might feel flooded during an emotional conversation and say you need space, but without clearly naming when you'll reconnect. So, because for you, space is regulating, but for an anxious partner, the lack of timing and that space can feel like abandonment. And that's going to escalate their kind of pursuit. We call this sort of distancer pursuer kind of, relational stuff takes over. Or you might respond to repeated reassurance requests with distance or with, irritation because, they feel endless. So what you experience as self-protection, your partner is going to experience as withdrawal, which again increases their fear and keeps the cycle going. You see, I know. And you're like, Abby, have you been in my house? No, I haven't, but this is how it looks. So in this pairing, you're avoidant, they're anxious. Predictability matters more than increased emotional intensity. That's what you have to remember. You don't have to become more expressive or emotionally demonstrative. I want to say that, okay? You don't. You do need to become more reliable and specific with how you're feeling, what you're doing, and when you'll follow up, when you'll reconvene. That's what you got to do. But they're usually asking you, I need to know more about how you feel and tell me more and right, all that. And you're just exhausted by it. And you're thinking this can't work. But again, doing that isn't going to help. You want to get clear in this other way, right? Calm follow through, clear timelines. They do more to soothe anxiety than emotional explanations or obviously pulling further away ever will, right? Okay. Now, if you're anxious yourself, okay, let's talk about that. So when two anxious people pair up, what I see is that connection feels instant. You are deeply bonded, right away, but fear can escalate just as quickly as the good stuff, right? The bad stuff escalates as quickly as the good stuff. Both nervous systems, yours and theirs, are scanning for reassurance, right? Both of you are sensitive to shifts. The relationship can become emotionally intense without ever, how do I want to say this? Without ever feeling quite steady. That's where things get scary. So for example, in these, if you're both anxious, let's say one of you senses distance and seeks reassurance, the other reassures, but then becomes anxious themselves about whether they did it kind of right. And the reassurance starts bouncing back and forth, but neither of you feels grounded. I know, I'm not in your house. This is what happens. Or the other thing I see is, conflict escalates quickly because both of you are trying to secure the relationship at the same time. So emotional conversations turn into, urgency, turn into tears, repeated processing, which of course is going to feel connective in the moment, but really exhausting afterward. So if this is your dynamic, learning self-regulation, it's not optional, babe. It's mandatory. Okay. I say with so much love. If neither partner can tolerate uncertainty or emotional discomfort, the relationship ends up running entirely on fear. So support is still important, but each person has to develop the capacity to calm themselves. So reassurance isn't the only way closeness is maintained. This is so, so important. And again, I did episodes on this. I will link to those. I got you all the tips, all the ways to do that. If you're more secure, never mind. Okay. I'll link to that. Let's talk about if you're more secure and you're with someone because I'm not sure that's the most common of these, but I'm going to throw it in there anyway. Maybe you've done a lot of work with me already or with whoever already, and you are a more secure person with an anxious person. In general, if you're like that, then loving an anxiously attached partner, the feedback I get from my clients when they're with someone like that, if they're more secure, is that it's confusing and it's draining. So you might generally care and still find yourself wondering why reassurance doesn't seem to land or why the same concerns keep resurfacing, right? So again, an example is you might reassure sincerely, you assume the issue is resolved and then be surprised when it comes up again later. From your perspective, nothing's changed, but from your partner's nervous system's perspective, the underlying fear still hasn't settled. Or you may find yourself slowly taking on the role, again, of emotional translator, stabilizer, or caretaker without realizing it. I found that a lot too. It's like self-gaslighting in a way. You show up consistently, but again, over time, you feel tired, you feel less spontaneous, or God forbid, responsible for keeping things calm in the relationship. And so I want to say your role here isn't to teach security or rescue your partner from their anxiety. It is to remain grounded, consistent, and clearly boundaried. That's it. Secure attachment helps when it offers steadiness, not when it turns into silent overfunctioning. That's what I see a lot. And, loving an anxious partner doesn't mean becoming their nervous system for them. I guess I'm just going to say that again. Okay. So I'm going to say maybe a hard truth, maybe not worth talking about right now, is that some anxious relationships become more secure over time, but many don't. If one partner is doing most of the soothing, most of the repairing, the explaining, the adjusting, that's not intimacy, that's emotional labor. That's it. Again, research consistently shows that mutual responsiveness and shared regulation predict relationship satisfaction. Mutual reciprocity, mutual responsiveness, shared regulation. Because sometimes I'm really upset and, my Gary needs to calm me down. And other times Gary's upset and I need to calm, right? It's shared, okay? Or help calm. I don't need to, sorry. That was icky language. But you know what I'm saying? Like you want to be supportive, you want to be that person. Sure, when that comes back and forth, we all have times when it's really nice to have somebody that can help us come back to base, right? Come back to ourselves. But it can't be one way, okay? So one-sided accommodation, we'll call it, predicts burnout and resentment. That's what, from the research. When it's one-sided, when it's one way, it predicts it. Telling you right now, there's burnout and there's resentment. That's what you're going to, and you might be having that right now, which is why you're listening. Love isn't enough if safety is missing. I can't say that enough. Okay. So let me wrap up. Loving an anxiously attached partner isn't about saying the perfect thing or preventing their fear. It's about really understanding what anxiety is responding to. That's what it's about. It's about building safety through predictability, through follow through, and really holding boundaries that allow both of you to stay and feel kind of whole. Now, in the next episode, the one you're going to hear next week, we're going to turn to the other side of the dynamic and talk about how to love an avoidantly attached partner without, chasing them or shrinking or disappearing or any of that. Okay, so stay tuned for that. And a reminder that the loving and anxious attached partner, 10 things to say and not say when anxiety shows up, is the free download for today. Get that below the video or on my website. And there's a Therapy to Go bundle. If you don't know what the Therapy to Go bundles are, basically, if you want to go deeper on, if you're like, this is my thing, Abby, oh my God, the whole time I've been nodding my head, these are all my issues, this is me, you might want to think about buying the Therapy to Go bundle. So the Therapy to Go bundle is $10. I'm going to explain what's in it in just a second. And, but also let you know that I have an online Substack community called the One Love Collective. And when you're part of that, the community is only $8 for the whole month. And that includes every Therapy to Go bundle that I offer in a month. Okay. So all of them get included. Plus live Q&As with me. You get live on a Zoom with me and we go any questions you have. It's like a big group therapy. It's amazing. Love it. We love those. You get early drops of the podcast and the blog. You also get the podcast with no ads. So if you find the ads really annoying, guess what? You cannot have them. You get all that if you just pay. I think it's a great deal. I purposely made it very affordable. And it's just, I think especially great for people who can't afford therapy or don't know how to do that. And I have to tell you, the support in the community is amazing. Imagine all these people in this community who are listening to to these and doing the work. So it's incredible. People will ask a question often in the chat, I just saw today, someone asked a question, had a work thing go on and they were like, oh my God, this thing happened at work. And this woman was talking about me, blah, blah, blah. There were 10 before I even got on there to see it. And I'm in there all the time, but there were 10 responses to her and they were so healthy. They were so supportive. They were so loving. They were so great. Half the time people are already saying what I would have said because you were listening to me and applying the tools, but I am in there a lot and it's a really close community and it's beautiful. So if maybe you're just looking for support in another way, this is a really nice thing. So what's in the Therapy to Go bundle for $10 or free or included, I should say, if you pay the $8 a month? I have really good journaling prompts for this one, again, to help you sort of get to what your subconscious drives are when it comes to being in this relationship. I have a worksheet I'm calling, Am I Supporting or Self-Abandoning? You know, when you're not sure, like, is this supportive or is this not? Is this too much? That's a worksheet for that. I have another worksheet that I'm calling Predictability That Calms Anxiety, just like ways to calm your anxiety with all this. I have another one called Loving Without Overfunctioning. It's really boundaries that calm your anxiety without shutting down connection, like how to have those. And then I have a Repair After Anxious Moments. So I have like another worksheet with scripts and things about how to create repair after you've had maybe some anxious interactions. So all of that, including the free download, by the way. You don't have to get the free download and buy the bundle. It'll all be together if you buy the bundle. There you go. Or maybe download the free download, see if you like it. Do you like what I have there? And if you do, I would say you probably would love the Therapy to Go bundle. There you go. All right. That is everything. I'm really excited for next week to kind of finish this little trilogy I've had about attachment styles. You asked for it. This actually got asked for a lot in the Substack community. That's the other plus of the Substack community. If anybody in there asks for something, those go ahead of the queue. Those topics, those ideas go ahead of the queue. So pretty much everything you've heard in the last few months has been from suggestions from my community. And so if you've liked that, you'll probably like the community too, because it means you're sharing a lot of the same issues. All right. That is it for this week. Oh my gosh, I love you so much. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for listening to the very end. Oh my gosh. Being with me here means, as you know, the world. If you've been with me for a while, I always say I'm the luckiest woman in the world to be able to do this for 8 years now. Oh my gosh. We're halfway through our 8th season. It's amazing. All right. Mwah. Love you. Love you. Have an amazing week. And I'm going to see you next week and we'll be talking more. Bye.